There's a certain kind of movie that feels less like it's being told to you and more like it's spilling out. I Believe in Unicorns is one of those films. Davina, the teenage girl at its center, is someone who builds her life out of fantasies. But the film doesn't let her stay in that space. The fantasy collapses, and what's left is the painful truth about what happens when dreams crash into the people and places we can't escape. At first glance, it's a story about growing up, but it's quickly apparent it's about the violence of escapism, how fragile our dreams really are when the world demands we wake up. I Believe in Unicorns is the kind of film that almost disappeared as soon as it was born. It premiered in 2014, tucked away in small festivals. Leah Meyerhoff, a director making her first and so far only feature. She had come out of NYU, shot the film on 16mm, and leaned on stop-motion inserts to create something that looked less like a studio project and more handmade. It lived briefly in the festival circuit, only to find a second life years later, the strange kind of word of mouth that belongs to films that were never really marketed in the first place. But that disappearance feels fitting. Unicorns isn't a film that wants to be remembered in a conventional way. It's fragile and fleeting, almost diary-like, as if Meyerhoff never made it for us at all, but for herself. Davina moves between two realities, the world of her imagination and the world she's trapped in, where everything is raw, unfiltered, and dangerous. She's barely 16, living with a mother whose body and mind are both breaking down. The stop-motion sequences aren't side notes. It's a record of someone who can't survive in the world as it is, so she bends it into shapes that she can stand to look at. Sterling, Davina's love interest, at first feels like a way out, the kind of figure who exists more as an idea than a person, but as their relationship deepens, he becomes something else entirely. The harsh reminder that escape routes aren't always safe, and that sometimes they're just new cages dressed up in different colors. Watching them together, you can feel the film resisting the easy arc we've been trained to expect. This isn't about love fixing her, or rebellion freeing her. It's about the way desperation can blur into desire. The more you watch, the harder it becomes to separate her inner world from the one on the outside. Davina begins to notice cracks in Sterling's charm. The things that felt exciting at first, his unpredictability, the way he pushed boundaries, the reckless energy he brought into her life, starts to feel heavy. Decisions that once seemed mutual are now dictated by him. Moments that feel like freedom become tense with the fear of making the wrong move. Davina's fantasies, the ones she's used to soften the world's edges, no longer offer relief. She starts to feel small in the ways she never did with her imagination, trapped in a real-world dynamic that mirrors the danger she was trying to escape at home. The film lingers on these moments quietly, but insistently. The viewer, like Davina, can feel the fantasies she's relied on beginning to buckle. As the journey continues, their adventures, once thrilling, begin to feel unsafe. Sterling's history hints at why he moves through the world with such destructive energy. Everything in Sterling's presence starts to carry weight, and all of this builds to the barn. By the time they arrive, Davina's fantasy has been stretched to its breaking point. What once felt like liberation is now suffocating. The film doesn't shy away from showing the manipulation that Davina experiences in the scene where Sterling's actions become unsafe, implying assault and leaving a deep psychological impact on Davina. Even in this devastating moment, the film retains its delicate gaze. It doesn't sensationalize the violence, nor does it offer easy comfort. It lets the audience sit with the weight of what happens, to feel how fragile escape can be, and how quickly the line between dream and nightmare can disappear. Davina is left to navigate a world that hasn't changed. Only her perception of it has. The stop-motion sequences don't disappear entirely, but they no longer offer escape. Instead, they exist as memory of a world she tried to create for herself. This is where the film's true power lies. It doesn't ask us to feel sorry for her, and it doesn't try to teach a moral, but just to witness her, to feel the tension between hope and reality, imagination and consequence. The tenderness of her fantasies and the brutality of her experiences coexist in a way that's difficult to reconcile, but impossible to forget. It's tempting to call it a cautionary tale about adolescence But that feels too simple. Davina's story lingers because it refuses to smooth over pain. Yet it never abandons empathy. Even when the fantasy has crumbled, there's something quietly resilient in her presence. A reminder that surviving doesn't have to mean thriving, and that endurance itself is a kind of grace.
There's so much I want to say, but I don't know where to start. Maybe when I learn to breathe, we'll finally be able to talk.
I Believe in Unicorns is a study of tension between desire and danger, fantasy and reality, adolescence and adulthood. It's about the way we cling on to our dreams, even when they're impossible to hold.